Hey there. So now is the time that we begin talking about how softwares are built. Now, I just want to give you an understanding of how real world software development happens, what are the different teams, the sort of, and who does what, the sort of rules everybody has. So all of this is going to give you some clarity about how real world process or how real world softwares are built actually in companies. And if you're a fresher or even if you are a bit experienced, okay, this is going to give you some different perspective. And if you're a fresher, this is going to give you a really good insight about understanding the software development process. So let's begin. So let's talk about how softwares are built. So what I will do is I will break this down. So I have this amazing flow chart that I have prepared and we'll go stepwise. Okay. So first step is I'll talk about this part only. Now, what is this part? So this part is about ideation and discovery, as you can see over here. Okay, so you can see ideation and discovery phase over here. Now, depending on the kind of company you are working for, this phase might differ a bit. Okay, in fact, everything might differ a bit, but this phase will differ a lot depending on what kind of company you are working for. And what kind of company I mean over here is whether it's a product-based company, whether it's a service-based, or whether it's a big enterprise, whether it's client-driven, market-driven, what sort of company it is. Right, that is how that is going to define how ideation and discovery phase works, but I'm going to give you a general idea that will bring you up to the speed. Okay, now generally in company what happens is a company might have a product or a company might be serving customers. Now customers are nothing but clients over here. So this client is nothing but the customer whom the company is building software for, and market signals, meaning they rely on market signals to define the product improvements and the roadmap. Okay, and this is particularly common when you have when you are working for a product based company. For example, Facebook example. Google is also an example. Google is a product based company. So depending on market signals, for example, now there is an AI wave. So based on these market signals, it is going to add all the the company can define that we need to add AI into all our products. So we need to make AI driven development, all these things. So these are all market signals. I hope you understand, okay, where market is going and what sort of, and market signal does not mean where market is going. Not only that, but it also takes into consideration the customer pain points. For example, doing user research, user studies, understanding the pain points or what sort of things would improve the metric. So understand one thing over here. Every company has a vision, has a goal. It might have revenue goals. It would have quarterly revenue goals, quarterly engagement metrics that are to be tracked. It will have a vision. So based on this vision also, these things are defined, right? So let's go further. What will happen is once you have a market signals or the requirements from the client, okay, for example, requirement can be this way, like our mobile users are churning because they can't save their progress in the app. So they are leaving the app because they can't save their progress. This could be a mobile app or a web application, right? And these requirements or these market signals are collected by product team generally. Right? Now, product team over here might be accompanied by UI UX developers or UI UX not developers, UI UX people. Okay, particularly user experience. Now, UI stands for user interface and UX is user experience. Okay, in some companies, so here if you scroll down, there is more team over here. So, for example, you can see over here devs who will do the development. There is Scrum Master over here. This is the project manager, not the product manager. Product manager is over here. And this is UI UX team over here. Now, sometimes what happen is there is a single team who does both UI and UX, or there is a single, or there is one person who will do UI as well as UX. And some companies can afford to have separate UI and UX teams. So if there is a separate team for user experience, that user experience team might accompany the product team over here. So that might be the case. I have not drawn that over here, but that might be the case is what I'm telling over here. So these product team along with the UI UX team will listen to the market signals, will listen to the client as to what the client wants, right? If you're a product base, it is going to listen to market signals and the feedback that we get from the product users. Or if there is a client, it is going to listen to the client generally. So client will drive the requirements, right? Now, this is collected by the product team over here. Then they would do some sort of research over here. Now, research is basically understanding that whatever requirements they have or whatever they have got, whether from the client or from the market, is it worthwhile? Okay. Now, if your project or your product is highly client driven, this research phase does not come into play. Okay, the research phase becomes something else. So if let's say a client wants that, hey, I want this particular feature in my app, okay, and this is non-negotiable. So what product team would do is, of course, client has said, so they now have to build this at any cost because it's a client driven product at the end of the day, right? So what product team will do is they'll do research about the competitors and how they have implemented this, and whether they can improve this feature a bit and impress the client, and also research goes in that direction. Okay, but if it's not a client driven or if it's not a client driven product, in that case the product team along with user research professionals, they are going to research the market, see how other products have implemented this. They will do a little bit of market study. They'll evaluate all the possible approaches, existing platform, who all are the competitors, who has implemented this in the best possible way. All of this they are going to do, and they're also going to evaluate if implementing this feature is going to help them reach their vision or the product goals. Okay, that evaluation will also be over here, and they will also take into consideration the amount of investment that is going to go in building this. So all that comes into play. Okay, but if it's client driven, then there's no question, client has said, so we have to develop this, and they'll do research in a way as to how they can improve this, and what all products exist, and how should be the user flow, and all of that. So the research is usually in that direction. All right. So this is the research part. Then once the research is done, it may be presented to the user client. Okay, like for example, once the research is done, if it's a product driven company, it is going to the product team might decide to have a prototype created, and they will show that prototype to few users. Okay, so they'll invite users for a study, and users will join in, and they'll give some sort of feedback that, hey, this prototype does not have this, does not have that. And usually at this phase, the work happens using wireframes. Now, wireframes is nothing but a rough sketch of what the product will look like. They might also go for a better version with the help of designer if they want to present it in a fair way to the users. So that might be the case. Or if the client is involved, if users are not there, if it's a client driven product, then they might create a prototype and show it to the client, right? Client might approve it, and if client is approved, or if there are any changes that needs to be done, product team will get it done, and then the document is created, or all the changes, everything, whatever needs to be done is documented, and usually this document, it becomes the Bible. And in this document, the product team will highlight what are the success metrics, what is the vision with this particular feature, and who is the target audience. It will also create epics over here. Epics is nothing but a high level form of user story, is just to put it in a short way. And then epics can be broken down into user stories, and then these user stories will be picked up by development team. Right? So this product document will generally come to development team. Now, this might also vary from company to company. If it's a big enterprise, if there is a lot of documentation involved, it's a big enterprise, then documentation will be very strict. But if it's a small startup sort of stuff, then documentation phase will be a little bit light over here. And generally, the process will be much more faster, wherein product team will directly get involved with devs and create a sort of team there, and they'll work towards the feature if it's a high-paced startup. But if it's an enterprise, then product document will come into play, all the user stories need to be defined, approved, and then this team comes into play. So once this entire process of research and documenting everything happens, then this team comes into play, or this phase comes into play. Now, this thing that I just discussed, ideation and discovery phase, this is very important phase when it comes to enterprises and large product development companies or big product development companies. Because during this phase, a lot of things are understood, and efforts are analyzed, like engineering efforts that will go into building a particular feature, and even investment is analyzed, and the decisions of whether this feature or this kind of change would be worthwhile is taken in this phase. And if it's a product development, if it's a product driven company, then normally CXOs and high level executives get involved and stay in communication with the product team to see what is going in the roadmap. So all that happens in ideation phase. And then once the things are finalized, it comes to developers. And this is where we'll talk about how development happens. All right. Now, it was important to understand this thing that happens before development so that you get an understanding of the hindsight, right? Because you as a developer will normally be interfacing with the product team or your technical lead, depending on the seniority level that you are at. If you are at a senior position, you will talk to the product team. But if you are at a junior developer position, then your team lead or your engineering manager will talk to the product team, and you will be interacting with the engineering manager itself. Now here, there will be teams like developers. These are all the developers. There is a Scrum Master. So if you're following Agile, the Scrum Master will be making sure like everything is happening as per the process. Then you have UI UX people who will be designing and creating proper designs so that developers can pick it up. Now, how the team is configured, that differs. Okay, I'll come to that in a bit. We'll also have PM. PM is nothing but a project manager who makes sure that right resources are being allocated to a particular project, because every feature that comes over here. So here, understand over here, the input comes in the form of epics and user stories. What is epics? So epic is nothing but a large chunk of work, and user stories is derived from epics. So epics are broken down into user stories. And if I have to give you an example of user story, an example user story could be, as a mobile user, I want to save my tutorial progress so that I can resume later. This is one clear statement that in the user's voice, right? From the user's standpoint. So this becomes a user story, and developers now come together along with UI UX, project manager, everyone comes together and they would want to deliver this user stories. Now here, there is a process. Okay, there is a process like code reviews. So whatever code developers write, that is generally being reviewed by a peer, and a peer from the same team or some other team. It varies from teams to team as to how they work. And these code reviews are done generally to make sure that everyone is following the right practices. Code is written properly. There are no issues, and all of that. It's basically a review. And if there are any issues in the review, they come to you, and then you have to fix those and again get a review done. Then you have something called as daily stand-ups. Now, what are daily stand-ups? So what happens is, in agile teams, there is this concept of daily stand-up, wherein first thing in the morning, team gathers at a commonly decided place at a commonly decided time. Okay, every day. It's fixed. So in this particular meeting room, or if it's a call, it will be a call. If it's a remote team, if it's a physical team, then they'll decide like this meeting room daily 10 o'clock, for example. I'm just giving example. Everybody has to gather and they have to talk about three things. One is what progress I did yesterday, what progress I intend to make today, and are there any blockers that are affecting my work. So these three things everybody has to tell in that particular stand-up. Now, these stand-ups are really important. Okay, so when I was doing a job working, and I saw the stand-ups a lot, and they're very, very helpful. So if you're a developer, junior developer, you will have complete clarity in these stand-up meetings as to what your fellow colleague is doing, what he worked on yesterday, what he's doing today, what he plans to do today, and is there any blocker. So the benefit is, you know where the project is heading, who is doing what, who is responsible for what. You also know if your work is being dependent on someone else. For example, if another developer, my colleague, says that, hey, I did this yesterday, today I plan to do this, and there is one blocker. I need him to write the code first, so there is some dependency he mentioned. So you will know that, hey, this person is dependent on my work, so I need to finish it faster. So these dependencies generally get cleared in such meetings, and they are very, very helpful. It keeps everyone in sync, and they are the best. I feel these meetings are really important, and generally it's a norm that no one in the team should miss these daily stand-ups, unless and until the reason is genuine. Of course, if you are on leave or something like that, you can skip these daily stand-ups. But if you are in the office, if you are working, if you have joined work, you should be present in these daily stand-ups. They are really, really important. Now this is clear. This process is clear. Okay, you got work in the dev team, got the work in the form of user stories, and there are also epics that are mentioned. But how is the dev team structured? Now, how the team is structured, that depends from companies to companies. Okay, I won't stress on a particular stream structure over here because every company is different. But I'll give you a general overview of how things work. Okay, so now how your team is structured. Okay, there are different ways to structure a development team. First is function based. Now, function based meaning people are grouped here based on their role or expertise or the functions that they are doing. For example, there will be a team called front end team, back end team, QA team, DevOps team. So developers are grouped that way. Okay, and this is good for small teams where expertise matters. So you will have separate teams. So 4 developers can form a backend team, 4 developers will be front end, 4 will be mobile, and 4 will be something else. Okay, something like that. So it's basically based on functions. Then you have feature based teams. Feature based teams meaning if there is a particular feature A that is being made. So what can happen is these people can be grouped in a feature team. So for example, if these 4 developers are working on a particular feature, then you can group these 4 and one person can be a backend developer. So the configuration is important over here. For example, for delivering a particular feature, what sort of configuration you want. So this guy can be a backend developer. We need one front end, one UI UX, and one can be something like DevOps or something. Okay, backend, front end, mobile. So you can configure your team, and then that becomes the feature based teams. Okay, and this particular team. So this team that I've created over here owns that particular feature, and that team is responsible for delivering it to the product team or the client. Now, this is great for ownership because this team is responsible for all the deadlines related to that particular feature, and they cannot say that hey, that team was working and it's a delay from their end. That's not a question, because it's your team's work. You need to finish it. So ownership wise, deadline wise, this configuration is the best. Then you have product based teams as well. For example, if a company has multiple products, for example, they might have a front end web application, they have internal dashboards, they might have a user facing mobile app. So every team would own a particular product or a platform, right? That is how the teams will be structured. Component based teams are also a norm. For example, one large application, enterprise application, might have several components like authentication service, review service, company service, order service, payment service. So then based on these components, you will have separate teams serving each component. So that's how the development happens, and that's how the teams are structured, right? And this is particularly component based teams is particularly common when the application is designed using the microservices architecture. Then you have a squad or tribe model. Now this squad or tribe model is made popular by Spotify. Okay, Spotify started using this squad or tribe model. What is squad? So a squad is like a team who owns a particular feature or a service, and then multiple squads in a particular related area form a tribe. That is how it works. Okay, you can read more about a squad tribe model Spotify. If you search, you will get complete information. So it works this way, and this is also one model which I've seen being adopted a lot. All right, so this is how developers function. Now the thing is, developers need to write code, it needs to be tested, and then it needs to go to the end users. So if you're a product based company, it will go to the end users, or if you are a service based company, it will go to the clients, because clients are nothing but your stakeholders or end users, right? So how should this happen? So normally developers would write code, they would deploy it somewhere, and then the the code is pushed to production, and then that is being served to the user. Now here also things are not that straightforward. Development team will generally use something called as Git. Okay, so here if I go down over here, okay, this might look a little bit complex, okay, but I'll just take you through everything. But development team might use something called as Git, and Git is nothing but a way. It's a version control system basically for software. So if you're making use of Google Docs, you will know that it stores your version history of the Google Doc. Similar way, this is Google Docs for code is what I can say if you don't know what Git is. And there are multiple platforms that allow you to make use of Git. So there is GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Now depending on your team might use anything from this. I've seen teams use different things. Okay, GitHub of course is the most popular thing out there. Okay, so this is what developers will use. Developers will push code to GitHub or any cloud. Okay, based on what their team is using, they'll make use of Git basically for version control. Now, when it comes to version control, things are not simple. So there is a concept of branches. Okay, of course, it cannot happen that developers wrote code and it directly goes to production. That cannot happen. It needs to be tested in different environments. So there are different environments that need to be created. So there is a dev environment, there is QA staging environment. It might be called as QA or staging, depending on the organization. Then you have prod environment. Prod is nothing but production. This is where things go live. So dev environment, meaning in this dev environment, developers are going to do development. So they're just going to write code. They're going to work on this. It's their space. Okay, things can go wrong. Anything happens over here, that's completely fine, right? Now, of course, these different environments are going to have code, right? For different environments, right? So there is going to be code, but how is code pushed to dev, QA, and staging, and how does code move to prod? So it's not that simple. It's not like a developer comes, he writes code, he tests on his local machine, and he pushes to prod. It's not like that. Okay, how things would work is, first, dev environment. Basically, the code that goes on dev environment is represented using dev branch. Okay, now if you're familiar with Git concepts, you will know like the source code or a Git repository is going to have branches. Now, branch is nothing but a stream of development. That is what, if I have to put it in a simple line over here for this particular video, it's just a stream of development. So what happens is, let's say I'm a developer. Okay, and I've been assigned on this feature wherein I need to create a notification over here, a notification feature. What I will do is I'll come over here. I will be having access to dev branch. Okay, I'll duplicate this dev branch over here. Okay, and this will be my feature branch because this is the branch where I'm working on the particular feature. So this becomes my feature branch. Okay, and whatever code I write, this is my feature. Now I'm working on this, and this is my branch. So whatever code I do, it will be saved on this particular branch over here. And once I'm done with the feature, I test it. Okay, I will raise a pull request. So what I will do is I will raise a pull request. So I'll write over here pull request like this. Okay, and here, this pull request is being done, and then this pull request is being done for the purpose of dev over here. Okay, so this pull request, something like this. So understand this, dev has the code that is there on dev environment. Okay, so I as a developer will check out or create a branch called with the name of my feature. So let's say my feature name is feature 1. Okay, I'll code everything whatever I want because I'm developing it. Okay, and I'm the owner of this feature. I'll write all the code over here. Then once I'm sure that okay, I'm done with the feature, this code needs to go further, I'll create a pull request on dev and I'll say, hey, I'm done with my feature. Pull request will tell everyone in the team or whoever is managing the dev branch, it will tell them that, hey, I have worked on this feature and this code is now ready to be merged into dev branch. That is what this pull request will signal. And then my code will be merged into dev branch. And once it's there in the dev branch, it is going to be deployed on dev environment. Yes, there are separate dev environments, QA staging and prod environment. So once the code is merged into dev environment, it will be deployed on dev environment and then it can be tested and worked over there. Once this is done, okay, it will be moved to QA or staging. So then this code will again be merged with the QA branch over here, QA or staging branch. There will be a separate branch. So there are separate branches for dev, QA and staging. There are 3 separate branches. 3 environments, 3 branches, right? And individual developers will create their own feature branches and they'll raise a pull request signaling that they want to get merged. Okay. Then once the development is done, I'll merge this into QA or staging branch. Then here, testing team will come over here and they'll do the testing. And here, the difference between dev and staging is, so dev environment will have limited data, not much of a data. And because it's being managed by developers. Here on staging, there will be a little bit more data, which is close to production. And QA team will also get involved over here. So your feature will be here for a while. It will be tested and tried by internal people and all the other stakeholders. Sometimes the access to QA or staging environment or the staging build is also given to clients just to show them the early progress. That is also done. Okay, but the mileage may vary. It may vary in your organization. Some organizations are like, no, we don't want to give access to clients or end users to this particular environment. That might be the case. That's okay. But I've seen people do this. Okay, they give access to staging builds to the clients just to show the progress. Okay, or they might even demo, just not give access. They might just demo on the call that this is happening right now internally. Okay, and then this, once everybody is sure that hey, this is perfect, this feature was built perfectly, and on the staging environment also with all the test data, it's working fine, then it's moved over here to prod. It pushed to prod. It's merged with prod over here, and once the merge is done, it's deployed to prod. Okay, now let us talk about this part over here, which is below here. This part I've not spoken about this. I've just been telling that code that is there on dev branch will go on dev environment. Code on QA branch will go on QA environment. Prod will go to prod environment. But how does it go? Does it go automatically? Yes, it goes automatically. So there is a concept of CI/CD test automation, which means every code that is written is tested automatically and is deployed automatically. So there is a CI/CD and testing automation scripts that are written by developers to automate the deployment. Okay, and for dev environment, the environment setup is done. So there is already a development environment setup. There is already a, okay, I missed writing over here that this is not dev environment. So this is for the dev this is for the QA and staging environment, and this is for the prod environment. Okay, I just didn't have the spelling written over here in the right way. Okay, but that's okay. I hope you're getting the sense. So these different environments. Now, how are these environments created? Now, of course, there will be cloud environments that would exist. And generally to create this, what happens is there is people make use of Terraform, things like Terraform. So there are ways wherein you can define infrastructure as a code. For example, what sort of instances do you want in the cloud? What all provisions you want to do. So all that, whatever infrastructure is needed, is defined as a code. And why is it defined as a code? So normally what happens is infrastructure guys can go and make use of the AWS UI, and they can create the instances and all of that, right? They can do all the setup using the UI as well. But the purpose of doing or writing the infrastructure as a code is because you might want to replicate the same environment on QA as well as on prod. What happens is when replicating, people might forget that, hey, this is something that I had done on dev, and I forgot to do on QA, I forgot to do on prod. So to avoid that, normally the code is there. Okay, code is written. You replicate that code over here on QA. You can increase the strength. For example, here you are just adding one micro instance. You have defined one micro instance over here. So you can increase that to a large instance over here in QA environment and a bigger one on prod if that's a requirement, if prod is on scale. Okay, so that's the thing over here, and it eases the stuff over here, and the likelihood of you missing something is very low. Okay, so this is done, and there are different environments and things are tested in different environments. Now, how many environments are there? That would vary depending on the organization. I've seen some organization wherein there is no dev environment. Directly there is QA and staging environment. Okay, and prod environment. There are just two environments. I've seen such companies. I've seen such companies wherein there are three environments. So depending on the mileage and the kind of company you're working for, this would vary. Now, once this is done, once things are in prod, what happens is it is available on the internet, and then it is available for monitoring and feedback from the users. So this is the entire process as to how things work. It looks complex, okay, but it's like a machine, you know. Things work over here. This is one ideation and discovery phase. Then you have this phase wherein the actual development happens and the code needs to be pushed and sent to prod. But how does it happen? So that happens using this infrastructure and the entire setup that is there. Now it's a great machinery, okay, but I have also seen companies that have a shorter deployment cycle, because this sort of thing that we saw over here, this would take time. Yes, there are multiple environments. The cost involved is high. Teams are big. This would work for enterprise or large startups. Okay. But I've seen companies that are small, very agile, and want faster developments, faster deployments. So this kind of setups works over here. So you can see over here, you have the ideation and discovery phase, wherein the ideation, product research, and everything is done over here. Okay, then you have development team. Okay, everything works the same except that they don't have to manage multiple environments over here, and they make use of things like Heroku. So Heroku is nothing but platform as a service, wherein you don't have to like do much for deployment. You don't have to manage infrastructure. It's all done by Heroku itself. You just pay them the price. It's like a subscription, and you can upgrade, downgrade anytime depending on the kind of servers you wish to work with. And how things work is there is a production branch, and as soon as the code is deployed, or as soon as the code is merged, sorry, not deployed, as soon as the code is merged into the production branch, it is automatically picked up by Heroku or the server, whichever service you are using. It is automatically picked up and it's deployed. You don't have to push the code to production. You don't do that. You have to just merge it to prod, and there is an event that is triggered to Heroku and it just deploys it. So it's very easy, fast, convenient. You don't need huge teams to manage infrastructure, and it's really convenient if the team is in early stage, and teams are small and they want faster movement, faster like from ideation to the production. That cycle, if the startup wants to be very small, then this kind of setup is preferred. Okay. Otherwise, if it's a big enterprise, then this is generally what we see. Okay. I hope this has been insightful, and I hope this has given you some clarity about how things work at enterprise level and how software development actually happens. Also, I hope you all enjoyed this particular video, and if you want me to bring such amazing content, or if you enjoy watching my content, feel free to hit subscribe, like, and comment below and let me know what sort of videos I should bring on the channel, and also let me know what sort of process works in your company.